I can unmute myself. Thanks, Kevin. I did promise that I would post two other meetings that are currently happening in the world of recovery because they are likely to be more interesting than me sharing. Those links are now in the chat. And if the spirit of Loki and the prankster was strong with us, it would only be myself and Kevin left in the room right now. It was just after 9 o'clock on a Tuesday morning. I was working as a program manager for a commercial radio station at the time. And I was doing what program managers of commercial radio stations do just past 9 o'clock in the morning, which is I was sitting in a Snoop session with my breakfast team. Now, in a Snoop session, we pretty much listened to what happened on air that morning, because we know that no matter how much preparation we do, when you open the microphone, you never quite know what's going to come out. So we take a listen through what happened, we discuss it, we plan. We also take a look at our prep for the next morning. And we also compare the prep we discussed the day before and see how well that ended up on air and how we can use that going forward. So in fairness, it could be said that a prep session is very much like an inventory. We were sitting, we were chatting, and my boss walked in, the station manager. And he walked in with our finance lady, who also doubles as HR. And he told the breakfast team that they could excuse themselves. I asked him, am I in that much trouble? He said yes. The breakfast team excused themselves, and he proceeded to inform me that he knew that I was under the influence of alcohol and that the HR lady had brought in a breathalyzer that they wanted me to blow into. In terms of South African law, South African labor law, you're allowed to refuse or to choose not to. The fact that you chose not to will be noted on your record, but it will not be considered proof that you were drunk. That's also then when he said to me, I don't want to fire you, but you have a problem. And in my more flippant moments, I would have responded with, no shit, Sherlock. Fortunately, I had the good sense not to, which is quite unusual for me, because I knew I had a problem, and I had known for some time. But despite several red flags, I'd never quite figured out when should have been the first time that I should have said, hi, I'm Dave and I'm an alcoholic. In the shopping center where our radio station is located, our offices are located, there's a pretty big, what we call a bottle store in South Africa, liquor store. There are also several other ones between my place of work and my humble abode. And I, for the longest time, made a point of every afternoon when I leave the office, I would drive to another one on the way home and pick up the traditional bottle of whiskey for the night. And the day when I decided, sod that, I'll just go to the one downstairs. Sorry, that happens. So that I'll just go to the one downstairs because it's easier. I should have known there was a problem. Then again, the fact that I knew well enough to go to different bottle stores every day, because I didn't want anybody to know that I was buying the same thing from the same bottle store every day. That should have been a red flag. Then I should have known. Maybe the first time myself and Vicky had a fight, and I knew she was wrong, and I was going to prove it to her, and I was going to sleep in the spare room. And I woke up in the spare room, and she asked me, what did I do wrong? And I couldn't remember. Maybe that was another time when I should have known, but I didn't. And I share this with you because while we may tell different stories, we all sing the same song. We all knew we were in trouble long before we admitted we were in trouble. And there seems to be a variety of factors that play into that gap, that ratio between know you're in trouble and being able to do something about it. And I think once we're able to quantify that ratio and that gap in time and figure out what all influences it, we'll be a hell of a lot better off. And that largely is my understanding of the AA program, is helping us understand what is it about me that could know there was a problem and could not find the wherewithal to actually do something about it. Because the problem probably started way before then, chances are. I was traditionally born at a very young age. 1968, the glorious year of our Lord. Just outside of the city of Durban in South Africa, area called The Bluff. In a couple of years, we moved to a place that's aptly described as a picturesque industrial slum at the foot of Fields Hill, a place called Pinetown, just outside of Durban. Kind of grew up, went to school there. Mentioned before, in South African, our provinces aren't nearly as autonomous as your states. They have their own government, but the South African law is standard. It doesn't change. For example, we wouldn't have a province with a death penalty and another one without. That's not going to happen in this country. But there are little differences in terms of admin stuff. And so the general indication in South Africa is that you go to school when you're 6. But now, two people were in different moods when they got the email. So in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, which is where I went to school, you went to school when you were 5, turning 6. And within about 2 years, we moved down to the Western Cape. And in the Western Cape, you go to school when you are 6, turning 7. So because of those two idiots who couldn't read the same email, I ended up being a year younger than all my classmates, all my peers, throughout my schooling career. And there's a whole pile of educational psychologists lining up to tell you that that's a bad idea and that it shows. And I've for the longest time pointed out that my lack of a stellar academic career is not because I'm stupid. It's because I'm lazy. And when I say stupid, I hasten to point out that, yeah, the EQ may not be quite what I would have wanted it to be. Intellectually, I may not be dumb, but emotionally, nah. And that is where the fun part comes in, that I've once again chosen a career path where EQ is very important. Fortunately, nowadays, we have a button to adjust it. And yes, it does go up to 11. Grew up feeling slightly... Well, grew up in a family was middle class, possibly lower middle class. And I say that because didn't always have all the fancy stuff my friends had. But there was never a want. Dad always had a job, always had a house. It was pretty stable. We only moved like twice, I think, in my life that I could remember. So there was always food and clothes and school and love. None of the fancy stuff, but I had a bicycle. So I thought I was kind of okay as a kid, except that I never quite felt that I fit in. Now, the fact that I was a year younger than everybody had something to do with it. And the fact that I wear glasses and had to get glasses at a fairly young age had something to do with it. Because that was very much still the age where if you wore something like glasses, you were, you got picked on, you got bullied, et cetera, which is insane. I don't understand why, but I'm not here to try and understand. Once again, not taking anybody else's inventory. The fact that I needed glasses also plays into that whole part of not quite feeling part of it, because when the eye muscle, I'm short-sighted, right? So I battle to see on the blackboard. And when the eyes have to work incredibly hard to try and read what's happening on the blackboard, those little muscles in your eyes get incredibly tired, right? Headaches, all the rest of it. But when they get that tired, they want to do one of two things. They want to look really far, because then their eye muscles can just relax completely. And they want to look at something green, because there's something in the wavelength of green that helps the eyes relax. That's why there exists in color a color called cockpit green, which used to be the inside of fighter jet cockpits were painted that green, and the inside of Hey Dave, what's that? Good question, my friend. The inside of surgeries in hospitals, they were also painted the same color once again, so that surgeons could just look at the wall and relax their eyes. Anyway, so when we went to the optometrist and they eventually tested my eyes and the optometrist explained all of this to my mom suddenly went, oh, that explains it, because every school meeting with the teachers she's ever been to, people were saying, oh, Dave is this and Dave's kind of okay, but he's such a dreamer. He should be paying attention on the blackboard, but he's staring out of the window. And then, like, no, he's not a dreamer. He was just trying to relax his eyes. Okay, I might be a bit of a dreamer. There's a song in there somewhere. So that all had me feeling slightly like not part of. And it's a fascinating reality looking back at my life, my ongoing quest to find tribe. And it's just looking for a group to fit into. And in the process, I don't like admitting, but I don't mind admitting I made some very, very bad decisions politically as well. In terms of just finding a group that would have me, basically. So thanks to all of you for finally putting up with me. But it's been a very real thing. And when we start looking in the AA program, as I understand it, we start looking at they call it defects. I prefer the maladaptive coping strategies and behaviors. That feeling that I don't deserve to fit in, or that I don't fit in, I don't have what it takes to fit in, seems to have been a recurring thread through my life. And I'm not entirely sure I'm quite out of it just yet. I'm not sure if I'll ever completely figure out whether I'm through it or not. But that's the process I'll get to. Back to the childhood, growing up pretty happy with bicycle. Have I mentioned the bicycle? I tried cycling for a while. It didn't work out so well. I went racing through there's a pass outside of Stellenbosch where I grew up called the Hellshoogte Pass, Hell's Heights. What a lovely name for a mountain pass. It was built by Italian prisoners of war. And if you've ever seen mountain passes in Italy, yeah, those things are fun. Tight, twisty little turns, what. And I was racing against a young Italian chap. We went on a training ride out and we're racing back home. And I was going a little bit too fast and I went face first into a mountain. Yeah, explains the nose and the teeth and the lower lip and all sorts of things. So the cycling thing didn't work out well for me, but it was fun at the time. Anyway, so school, nerd, but the non-academically performing nerd because of aforementioned laziness. So I was very much middle of the nerd. My brother, 3 years older than me, he's quite brilliant and very good student. Committed, worked hard, and performed. 2 younger sisters, one 5 years younger than me, who is very much a copy of my brother, and another one 2 years younger than her, is very much a copy of me. So the family had some kind of pattern to it, which is unusual, but there it is. I may have to jump up at any moment and just let Lindiwe in, right? She's the lady who looks after Jackie while myself and Vicky go out to earn a salary so we can pay Lindiwe a salary to look after Jackie. In our home, there was never drinking. There was never alcohol. And it was not a thing. And it was so not a thing that it was never a thing. My parents didn't drink. Their parents didn't drink. Yeah. My lovely Ponzi scheme joke about AA when people say, I've got a sponsor, my sponsor's got a sponsor, and his sponsor's got a sponsor. Yeah, AA may not be a cult, but it's sounding like it's stacking up to be a hell of a Ponzi scheme. Kidding. But alcohol was just never a thing in our house. It didn't exist. It wasn't as a result of a religious consideration or anything. It just weren't there. Then I was I don't hear anything yet. Then when I was about 7 or so, we moved down to Stellenbosch, Western Cape in South Africa. Now, for the Western Cape, kind of think Napa Valley in terms of wine country. Okay. And in wine country, even my parents were church people. Hang on. I'll be back in a sec. And I'm back. My parents were church-going people. We were a church-going family. And in this wine, because the wine farmers were a big part of the church as well, so always barrels of wine lying around. So some alcohol became used in the house. My dad ended up getting quite a taste for ciders and for a cream liqueur, Cape Velvet Cream. Yeah, so there goes my final chances of having had any street cred. But once again, never became an issue. I had a couple while growing up in high school. The guys would get together and have a bit of a party, and somebody would get some alcohol, raid a dad's liquor cabinet or something. And that was another one of the red flags I should have noticed early on, was the fact that whatever we had, when we finished it, I'd be the guy looking out for more. I would be the one to try and figure out how could we get more, where can we go to get more, can we plan better for next time, kind of thing. Not realizing at that point that there would never be enough. Yeah, once again, what did I know? I was 17 at the time. Tried to study, but once again, the laziness of me caught up with me. And as a result of the South African situation, I had to go and do 2 years of national service. So I got into the army. And once again, refer my previous situation of looking for tribe and looking for a group to fit into. And the army is very much like, jokingly, like this place. If you put your hand up and you say, I want to do service, you suddenly got a whole bunch of new friends. And it's the same thing in the army. If you want to get involved, they're waiting with open arms. And so I very nearly ended up with a permanent career in the military, which at the time would have made sense. Looking back at who and what I was, I'm truly glad that didn't happen. So that was one opportunity. The other attempt at finding tribe was just about signing up for the Sea Org, which, if nobody knows what that means, is a very serious part of the Church of Scientology, which also made sense at one point. So when I say I was running around looking for tribe, I'm not shitting you, okay? And these are the ones I don't mind mentioning in public. They were worse. Tried studying, went to the army, did 2 years, came out, went missioning about in this world, because I ended up working in a hotel for a while, hospitality management, and it's as a result of that I still, this is my keyring, that I carry around with me every day. It's on a carabiner which clips onto my pants, because in a hotel I ended up being the second lowest form of life, which is the assistant F&B manager, the assistant food and beverage manager. And basically, if you do that, you have to stock all the bars, the little mini bars in the rooms, and the restaurant's bar, and this bar, and wherever you are in the hotel, the key that you need will be on the other side of the hotel and 2 floors down, guaranteed. So you learn to carry all of them with you, and so I carry all of them with me. I make habits, and I kind of keep them for ages. Like when I first got a cell phone in this country, if you missed a call and somebody left a voicemail message and you phoned back to get the voicemail message, you had to pay for the call, right? How they ever figured that was going to fly, I have no idea. But anyway, I was broke and I couldn't afford to, so I never went anywhere without my cell phone. To this day, I cannot possibly have a bowel movement without a cell phone in my hand. I think that thing is coming back, but yeah, habit from ages. So worked in the hotel, and then decided to go walkabouts, and bought an old 67 Fleetline Combi, the one with the split windows and the 2 doors that open sideways, and went cruising around the country for a year or 3, working at restaurants as a waiter when I needed money, and then just going around. And there was alcohol going around, there was weed going around. Slowly got settled a little bit, relationship here and there. The relationship history is also not a particularly happy one, just because looking back at the person I was, I don't particularly like that dude much. So yeah, at some point when I get through the steps, there's some amends to make. Through all of that, none of the drinking was a problem. None of the weed smoking was a problem. I got very much into LSD at some point. Mushrooms, nah, not so much. That's far too hippie, that shit. I really enjoyed acid. And all of those, they just kind of went out of my life, except alcohol. And alcohol then slowly but surely became more and more pervasive. And it got to the point where one Tuesday morning, just after 9 o'clock in the morning. And once again, the progress of alcohol in relationship, and here I'm not speaking for Vicky, but I'm speaking of us. You know, on the weekends, we get in the morning, get ready to go somewhere and jump in the shower and like, oh, whiskey for the shower, yeah, because we always used to drink shots of whiskey, and I'd get her, whiskey for the shower. And it was it's only on the weekends. And then one Friday morning, it was like, no, whiskey. Come on, it's Friday. Yeah, whiskey for the shower. It's Friday morning. Oh, well, whiskey for the shower. It's Friday tomorrow. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. You can see where this story is going to end, don't you? Eventually, it got to the stage where I would have a whiskey in the shower when I showered. I would get her a whiskey in the shower when she showered. We would have another one when we came out of the room, and then one or two more just to get on the road. And that was the tradition. Every morning would be at least 5 whiskeys before we left the house. And I wouldn't leave with her. I would come back in the house. I would leave an hour or two later. So I would leave the house 8 to 10 whiskeys down. So that morning when my boss said to me, I know you're drunk, even though the reason I was bussed wasn't because of drinking. The reason a colleague saw me stumble as I stepped out of my car. And that was because of a condition I developed called peripheral alcoholic neuropathy. But the bottom line was, he told me I need help. I was put on suspension immediately. The company has a wellness program, and they were going to step in and help, and they didn't. They can't organize a piss up in a brewery, which is a remarkably apt analogy in this instance. And we went to our GP, our doctor, and he took one look at us, and he wouldn't let us leave his surgery unless we had place in a rehab. He wanted us literally to go the next morning. We had a life and a house and a dog and whatever that had to be taken care of, so that couldn't happen. Well, actually, not a dog at the time. So we had to get the dog sorted out. But that was a Thursday, and we went to rehab on the Monday. So yeah, the Monday, that was the 8th of May. Our sobriety date is the 9th of May because there's no version of reality in which I go to an alcohol rehab sober. So sobriety date 9th of May. Did the rehab. I had no idea what to expect of a rehab. I'd always only read and thought of rehab in terms of people with heroin problems. Alcoholism was never really anything on my horizon. The idea of the brown paper bag under the bridge didn't even really compute with me. So I had absolutely no idea what to expect in rehab. Looking back at it now, I'm incredibly and eternally thankful for the concept of a medical detox. I cannot imagine trying to go through that and staying committed to a decision to not drink. I do not think that I had the intestinal fortitude to do that. The rest of rehab was weird. It was like this strange summer campy kind of school hostel vibe with these strange lessons and shit, and it was just really, really strange. Positively so, largely, although I did feel a bit weird and spacey, but it was okay. Came out of it, got back home. Myself and Vicky went at the same time, but we had to go to different rehabs. Got back, got into AA because it was mentioned to us, and hopefully for the last time, found tribe. And I really think this is the correct one because of the fact that it's actually people, if they can't understand me, they can at least understand more of what formed me and what shaped me and what brought me here than anybody has ever understood about me in any other sphere of my existence. And that's kind of scary that we have to go through this kind of shit to be able to find some kind of commonality. I have a problem with people going, I'm a grateful alcoholic. I understand the concept. It just sounds twee as fuck. So I don't like it much. Nothing personal if you do. Please understand. I'm like an arsehole. I am an opinion. Oh, hang on, that didn't come out right. But you know what I'm saying. Yet I am eternally grateful that I ended up in a place where I could start looking back at myself and that I could have run into a program that turned me around and said, oi, sorry, Max, but thanks for that. Turn around, have a long, hard look at yourself. and I have been. And I haven't liked a lot of what I've seen. I have liked some of what I've seen. I'm not a complete doos. Doos being an Afrikaans swear word for cunt. I'm not a complete cunt, but I have had incredibly shitty behaviors and behavioral styles and behavioral habits that I'm beginning to come to grips with now. I'm carrying guilt for them. I don't quite know how to fix a lot of them yet. I'm not working the steps. Maybe I should. And hey, maybe one day when I'm big, I will. So it's been a hell of an experience. I told you it's a boring as shit share because I just don't really have major war stories. But if my experience of finally finding tribe and finding an organization that could stop me in my tracks, make me turn around and make me look at myself, if that can help anybody else do the same, because the only way to realize why we didn't act on those red flags, and we all had them, we have to go and look at why we didn't act on those red flags. And only then can we start finding green flags. And fuck it, this meeting isn't all about green flags. I don't know what is. And that was 25 minutes. Thank you so much for your kind attention, Kevin. Thanks for asking. Hi, I'm Dave. I'm an alcoholic.